everyone, this is Team 1 and the industry we are analyzing is the vascular closure device industry for percutaneous procedures. Minimally invasive procedures to treat cardiovascular diseases is on the rise, and from the various access sites used for these procedures, femoral is the most common site. Manual compression is the current gold standard for closure of these sites post-procedure. However, it can often be cumbersome to hold pressure for long times. VCDs on the market are an alternate option and have proven benefits over manual compression. Next, we'll look at the market size for VCDs. The global market size for VCDs is expected to reach $1.3 billion by 2026 at a 7% compounded annual growth rate. Currently, the US accounts for 30% of global market revenue and is expected to continue dominating the market share. To calculate the US market size, our approach is as follows. Using a top-down approach, we are primarily considering the use of VCDs in coronary and peripheral artery diseases, since those are the most prevalent disease states where VCDs would be used. Of the 18.2 million people that suffer from CAD, about 2 million receive coronary stents each year. About 19 to 21 million people suffer from PAD, which has a slightly higher prevalence than CADs. And based on this, it can be estimated that about 3 million people receive PAD treatment each year. This brings our total to 5 million people that receive interventional treatments in a year. Since manual compression is still widely used and use of VCDs is operator and procedure dependent, we assume only 30% of these interventional cases use a vascular closure device, bringing our market numbers to 1.5 million. Average VCDs cost between $150 to $250, and assuming a $200 VCD, our market size is estimated at $300 million US dollars. Next, we'll discuss our market segmentation.
Most VCD analysis papers segmented the market into device type, device access location, procedure, and region. Based on original criteria, this market was segmented by patient comorbidities, vascular closure technique, price, and medical specialty. Patient comorbidities included patients with neurological, cardiovascular, and/or vascular comorbidities, patients with large body habitus, patients on anticoagulation therapy, and patients at higher risk for wounds. Vascular closure device types was segmented into collagen-based plug, suture-based, nitinol clip-based, and the price was also segmented by the vascular closure device type, collagen-based at $190, suture-based between $295 and $495, and nitinol clip-based at $388. And by medical specialty, it was segmented by cardiology, interventional radiology, vascular, and neurology.
Let's now discuss non-market forces, namely regulation of the VCD market and some important market trends. Besides FDA pre-market evaluation of safety and efficacy, there's a recent and important new trend in market regulation in which the post-market clinical experience is being reported out in national registries in a potentially actionable way. For example, in 2017, Resnick et al. Published a landmark paper in the New England Journal in which they utilized the CATH-PCI registry database generated and maintained by the American College of Cardiology to perform a prospective matched analysis of reported safety issues between the MINX device and all others. Using this registry analysis, the authors were able to demonstrate a higher rate of complications, specifically bleeding and hematoma, associated with the use of the MINX device as compared to any other. What will the stakeholder reaction to this new form of industry and market regulation be? Physicians will most likely laud the effort as it comes from their thought leaders and utilizes the databases that they construct and maintain in their professional societies. Most importantly, perhaps, is the question of how the FDA will respond to such organic market regulation. They have multiple options they could consider, including encouraging more such registry analysis. They could use an alert to register concerns generated over product safety issues. They could go so far as to issue a black box warning to be included as a product insert. They could propose more formal randomized controlled trials, or they could insist on removal of the device from the market. This is an important new direction in regulation which companies will want to be well aware of, including planning adaptive strategies should their products be flagged by such research. I'll conclude by mentioning another important market trend. As mentioned previously, the most common approach in PCI procedures is via a femoral approach, or via the artery located in the groin. Critical market trend is increased use of access for procedures via a radial artery or wrist approach. This change is key because the radial artery is far more superficial and is thus easily manually compressed and requires no VCD. The VCD market will thus have to move towards those patients that cannot have a radial artery approach. These are patients who require access with a larger sheath for their procedures, which the smaller radial artery cannot accommodate. These larger sheaths must still go through the groin and will indeed still require VCDs.
Now we'll turn to the non-market force of reimbursement. Vascular closure devices, since the early 2000s, do have a specific CPT code which can be used for reimbursement and billing. There's a device code of C1760 or 69, and then a physician component as well. It's important to note that neither of these are separately reimbursed. The device is either a pass-through cost of the procedure DRG, or if it's in the inpatient setting, or a CPT if the procedure is in the outpatient setting. Now, before we get into the reimbursement criteria for payers and Medicare, it's important to note that, as we mentioned earlier, the average device charge is approximately $200. This is almost 10 times as much as the manual compression device, so it's not surprising that Medicare and the other major commercial payers do have eligibility requirements for this procedure. Medicare requires that the patient must be at an increased risk for stroke, that the patient is eligible for short-term warfarin but not a long-term anticoagulant, and that physician and patient shared decision-making is documented in the medical record. The major commercial payers do tend to follow the same Medicare guidelines for the vascular closure device as they do for other procedures and devices. However, due to the cost, we have seen that some of these payers do require additional criteria when making eligibility requirements, and reimbursement is not guaranteed.
Now we're going to look at the key stakeholders in the vascular closure device industry. When we think of the key stakeholders in healthcare, the 4 Ps come to mind: patients, providers, payers, and policymakers. In the vascular closure device industry, the 4 Ps are present as stakeholders with the addition of medical groups and clinical practice setting bodies. Patients are one of the most important stakeholders because their quality of life is affected. Medical groups, such as the Association for Vascular Access, serve as patient advocates to improve patient outcomes and share learning across the practice. Clinical setting bodies, such as the Society for Vascular Surgery, SVS, or the Society for Vascular Nursing, are setting bodies that, one, provide a professional community for the providers and nurses, and also they set standards and guidelines for the various types of vascular procedures that can be performed. For providers, the use of vascular closure devices helps them to help the high-risk patients begin to move around more quickly with less pain and discomfort. These devices are preferred over manual compression and are more beneficial to older and less healthier patients. Payers, such as Medicare, which seems to be one of the largest payers in the medical device industry, pay for medical devices indirectly when reimbursing providers for using devices in procedures. Some of the data we discovered shows that in hospitals, with Medicare, hospitals spent about $14 billion on implantable medical devices and $10 billion on medical supplies. Policymakers, the other key stakeholders, such as the Food and Drug Administration, regulates all medical devices. Manufacturers must adhere to regulatory controls that include pre-market review, labeling, establishment registration and device listing, and quality system registration. In summary, the vascular closure device market is trending to become one of the largest device markets in the world. As a result of the aging population, the increase in needs for vascular procedures, coupled with the decrease in pain, discomfort, and recovery time, the use of vascular closure devices has become the preferred method of treatment for patients who require vascular surgery.